And hey, we're live. Taylor Haase is in Washington, D.C., and I am in a studio. And she's in a more interesting place than I am, to say the least. Taylor, it sounds like you covered one really interesting morning skate before we get formally going here. Penguins versus Capitals tonight at 7:08 p.m. And a bunch of neat things there, right?
Yeah, I mean, as interesting as optional morning skates can be. I mean, Tanev, Malkin, and Gaudreau, I mean, it was definitely worth the 5-minute walkover. But yeah, Tanev, Gaudreau, Malkin, they're all out there. Tanev, non-contact. But yeah, I feel like Gaudreau will be back tonight. Malkin, just because he stayed out late with the taxi squad guys and the other guys who are going to be a healthy scratch, I don't think he's going to be quite back yet. Gaudreau, though, did go off when the regular guys went off. And Jankowski stayed out with, like the taxi squad extra guys. Which makes me think that Gaudreau's back in, Jankowski's out, Malkin's not quite back yet. Malkin did take, so they did optional skate, obviously. They didn't have regular line rushes. Malkin was working with Kapanen and Zucker, but Jeff Carter didn't take the optional skate. So not exactly any clues there, but yeah. I tweeted about it. Malkin and Tanev were bickering at each other for a lot of the optional skate, going back and forth, yelling at each other, arguing about the score of the drill or who messed it up or whatnot. And then the equipment guy came out at the end and was taking shots. So it's probably as interesting as an optional skate can be.
Well, I'll ask you this again before we get formally started. When you look at this lineup for the playoffs, because you're now seeing with your own eyes these guys coming back and being ready and available, who is I guess I can just say who's the third line right winger, right? Because that's what we're talking about here, isn't it?
Yeah, because you figure the second line is going to go back to what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Third line, McCann, Carter. Fourth line. So we're talking fourth line is Asterisk, Bluger, Tanev.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, so McCann, Carter.
You see where I'm going
Zucker,
here?
Because Zucker hasn't done a whole lot, but I mean,
no.
Rodriguez has looked better than Zucker at times lately. But I also don't see how he can just scratch Zucker. But then again, if that's your third line, that would force Zucker onto his off wing, which hasn't really worked so far.
No.
So I mean, it might be Rodriguez.
So I'm thinking it comes down to Rodriguez versus Gaudreau. And if Gaudreau shows two things: A, he's healthy, and B, that he can kill penalties at least an approximate level to Rodriguez, he should be in there, and that would make Rodriguez the scratch. I understand this is pretty pie in the sky here, because we're talking about everybody being healthy on a team where that simply has not been the case, since day one.
Yeah. And Gaudreau has pretty much done that when the PK guys, when a couple of them were out, and when Tanev and Bluger were out. I mean, there are games where Gaudreau was the forward with the most shorthanded time. I think there are 2-3 games where he was the most frequent penalty killer. That was when they were on a streak of a perfect PKs for a couple of games. I mean, he's capable of it. We've seen it. I mean, yeah, he could be the option too.
Well, here we go. Ready? Here goes. Well, hello and welcome to a special edition, I should say, of Afternoon Ask Anything. It's a rare thing in our business at DK Pittsburgh Sports, as our most tenured staffer can attest, when we have all three teams going with so much news and so much stuff, isn't it, Taylor? Taylor Haase is with me, by the way, in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, busy time.
for everybody. She's down there doing Penguins versus Capitals at 7:08. Pirates actually have a day off. They played last night and start a new series tomorrow against St. Louis. And then, of course, there's this little football thing going on tonight here. Here's how it works. Leave your questions in comments and whatever else here, and we'll take them on as we're going here. Thomas says, hello, how are you doing? We're going to start with an easy one here, Tom. I'm doing about as well as this coffee is going to make possible. Taylor, how are you doing?
Great. We just talked about it. Exciting electric optional skate this morning.
Let's start with a hockey one since we have Taylor on board. Beckett asks, when do you think POJ will be back in the NHL? That's a good, hard question to get us going.
Next season. I don't think he comes back up this season unless I need him due to injury. But, he's looked good since they sent him down to Wilkes-Barre. I just think there's not really a spot for him right now unless, a left-handed guy gets hurt. But I still think that maybe they move a left-handed guy in the offseason like Pettersson, and then you open up a spot for him. But right now I just don't think that there's a spot for him, and it's just not the best option for him to be up in as like an extra guy.
Yeah. I would take that a little further and say that the decision that this new management team has to make this offseason that might be the most compelling one is what to do with Cody Ceci, who's going to be a free agent unless they do something to keep him. And boy, should they keep him, in which case POJ's facing the same uphill climb unless you can trade Marcus Pettersson or move somebody else out.
Well, that's why, people ask for like who you're going to protect in the expansion draft. For my 3 defensemen, because Joseph and Marino are exempt, you have to protect Letang. So then my other 2, I would say Dumoulin and Ceci. Ceci is a pending unrestricted free agent, but in the expansion draft, if you want to keep a pending UFA, you have to protect them because if Seattle wants them, they can and will take them. So, Ceci, the way he's been playing, I would pick him.
Gwen jumps in and says, I agree. I love Ceci. Brian asks if the Pirates are competitive, is there any chance they build on what they have going? If you mean in season, Brian, we're way, way, way far away from discussing whether or not the Pirates should be buyers at the deadline or something. They're 12-12, and it's April. What they've done has been a pleasant surprise, but I don't think there's a need to take it a whole lot farther than that right now. Miracles do occur. You can knock Mitch Keller out of the rotation. You can make other things work better, and you can become competitive. But that's that one's a little bit too hypothetical for my taste here. Let's see what else we got here. Mike Bober asks, how does the acquisition of Jeff Carter change which forwards the Penguins protect?
I don't think it does because, you're regardless of how good he plays, I still don't think you're protecting him either way, just because Seattle's not going to want to take a guy who they're only going to have for probably one more year. Under the 7-3 format, you can 7 forwards, obviously, Crosby, Malkin, Gensel, Rust, Kapanen, and then you're down to 2. And those 2 probably would go to 2 of Tanev, Bluger, or McCann. I think you leave Zucker unprotected. And I just think those 2 spots come down to McCann, Tanev, and Bluger. So that's what I said before. I don't think Carter changes that at all.
E. Torres says, any particular reason the Steelers extended Mason Rudolph the day of the draft? For anybody who hasn't heard, this was literally just in the last few minutes that there was a 1-year extension with Rudolph. For anybody who doesn't know further, Mason had 1 year left on his deal. So what you were going to have is this awkward situation where it looks like it'll be Ben's final year ever. It would be Rudolph's final year with the Steelers. And then you have Josh Dobbs and Dwayne Haskins. So you had a total kaboom scenario coming after 2021 as it relates to quarterbacks. And I can see why the Steelers would have wanted to address that. Karen asks if my thoughts have changed with Todd Frazier. I'm not sure exactly what you mean, Karen. I know that he had a hit last night. He had a 2-run double, had a couple of good at-bats. He's batting 1 for 17. And what my original thought was with Mr. Frazier that seemed to tick him off so much was that Phillip Evans had outperformed him in spring training. Well, guess what? He did. Significantly. Now, Evans has struggled a lot since then. But my thoughts in spring training actually had nothing to do, or very little to do with Todd Frazier and way more to do with Phillip Evans. But to answer it, wake me up when he's not 1 for 17 here. John Marker says, he says task. Tuukka Rask had too much line of sight. Should Radim Zohorna and or Gaudreau, Lafferty, Angelo get in the lineup? If you mean to screen Tuukka, remember that Mike Sullivan told us after the game that he actually was okay with the bodies that the Penguins put in front. He wasn't okay with the inability to get the pucks through, which is a different layer.
Yeah, I don't think we see, just with the forwards coming back, I don't think we see Zohorna, Lafferty, or Angelo again this season. But
Wow.
like we talked about, unless they have injuries, who would they come in for?
Well, I don't know if it's I don't think it's a matter of who they would come in for. I think that might be an opponent-specific thing. Let's say, for example, that Washington is the first-round team, and Washington has everybody, and everybody knows that the Capitals are a bigger team that doesn't mind getting snarly with you. If you have Brian Burke as your president of hockey operations, and he mentions the word truculence even once in the playoffs, that's when I think you could see some of these guys. Not that Angelo and Lafferty are roughhouse types or whatever, but it would at least give the lineup a little bit more size.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for truculence, Zohorna's probably not your best option.
No, he's not. He's just tall.
he's just big. But Gaudreau, I think, gets in the lineup tonight in place of Jankowski. That's not obviously not a size thing. That's just that he's a better hockey player than Jankowski. But I mean, again, and Angelo too has looked good in Wilkes-Barre. I've seen him since he got set down. He had a really good play yesterday in the tying goal to force overtime. So I've seen good things from him.
Gwen wants to know when the expansion draft is. I actually don't know that. I know it's this year.
July 21st. It's a week before free agency opens. So that's why if you want to protect a guy who's a pending free agent, like they have to be protected. Because looking back at the Vegas draft, of their 30 selections, 9 were pending UFAs. In which case they either sign them themselves, or they trade them away to teams that will sign them and get the picks. So, if you want to keep Ceci, even though he's a pending UFA, you have to protect him.
I feel so bad for Ron Francis on so many fronts, because what George McPhee did in Vegas was literally without precedent, because there had never been an expansion draft like that. But he also gamed the system so badly, and he fooled so many GMs and ticked off so many people. And A, Ronnie's not nearly that mean. He's like one of the nicest people on earth. And B, all the tricks were exposed. And so if you're a team like the Penguins and you have Ron Hextall and Brian Burke in place, they're going to know everything, every little loophole that McPhee exploited at the time, and make sure that Ronnie can't do it to them. Daniel Matos asks, Taylor, how do you see Alex Doria's ceiling? For anybody who doesn't know, that's one of their top goaltending prospects.
Yeah, I mean, he's looked it's hard to say just because he's like risen so quickly. I mean, he played all last season in the ECHL just because they had too many goalies. He started this season in the ECHL again because he started in the Texas squad and then went down to the ECHL for playing time because they had a lot of goalies. He's back up, and he's Wilkes-Barre's #1 goalie. And it seems every game he's getting better. They're talking about, like, the coach and the players about how calm he is and steady back there, and just gives them a lot of confidence. I mean, yesterday, his 22nd birthday, he had a 41 save win. That was, I feel like every game he plays, I'm like, okay, that's like the best he's looked at this level, and he just keeps getting better. So, but like I said, 22 years old, he's very young. So I mean, could he reach the NHL? For sure. It's hard to predict these goalies, but as young as he is and as good as he's looking right now, like, I would not rule it out.
It's another goaltender's birthday today too, right?
Tristan Jarry, and it's funny, Mike Sullivan was asked about that today. Like, the way the question was phrased is like, Tristan Jarry's birthday is tonight, and then
is he starting?
No, well, Sullivan actually volunteered that at the beginning, but it was Tristan Jarry's birthday is tonight. Do you have any like memories of games on your birthday or something like that? And Sullivan said, I was not aware it was Tristan's birthday, but he said, I believe when it's your birthday, it's your birthday all day. And then he did not remember having any good games on his birthday in particular. So
you know what, Sully was a fourth line plugger. He didn't have too many super memorable games as an NHL player. Chris Carter has joined us to talk some football. Golf Doc gets us started here. No top running backs, the big three available. At what position should the Steelers pick? I think what he's asking is if none of them end up. I'm not seeing 3 running backs taken in the top 23.
Yeah, I'm not either. Sorry for being late. Had a family emergency here, but it's linebacker. I think there's too many good prospects in the first round that with Zaven Collins, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, one of those guys being available. I also like Jamin Davis out of Kentucky. All 3 of those guys, talented first-round guys. Pair them with Devin Bush. Your defense is going to be lights out. I'd put Caleb Farley in that reign as well. If he's at 24, that's going to be tough to pass up in this hypothetical where running backs are gone. But that's about it.
Let's see what else we have here. Will the Steelers draft an offensive lineman?
Yes, at some
yes,
point.
they will. I don't know if Matt's asking about the first round. There's no way they're getting through this draft with this level, this quality of offensive tackles that are there and the depth. Honestly, Carter, I think I'll be surprised if they don't end up with one of those guys in the first 3 picks.
I think there could be 2 guys in the first 3 picks. I've done multiple mock drafts where they get a center and a tackle along with a running back, and the first 3 rounds by end of day 2, it's all off. It's offensive line, running back, boom, 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 and down the line. I think that would make a lot of sense for what they need and for the problems that they had last year. They could get a slot corner, an edge rusher, both in the 4th round, who I think would be good contributors into helping as glue pieces on defense.
And Ivan Reif asks, can you describe Jankowski's game? And Ivan puts multiple question marks after that, which would actually be my response. Why does Sullivan
Honestly,
seem like
I really don't have an answer for that. It's hard to say. I mean, in Calgary, he wasn't producing a whole lot, but he was, good defensively. He's really not even so much that here. He does kill penalties, but like we've talked about before, they have guys who probably can do it better. Why does Sullivan seem to like him? I wouldn't even say that he necessarily does. I just think that his hands were kind of tied with the injuries they've had. And I mean, like we talked about earlier, based on the clues from the morning skate this morning, I think Gaudreau is in and then Jankowski is out. So first opportunity where it really makes sense to take him out, I mean, he's out. So I wouldn't say Sullivan necessarily really likes Jankowski.
Yeah, the thing about Jankowski is not a lot of people know this, but he was a first-round pick of the Flames because he's a big dude, which also nobody knows because he doesn't play big. He's 6'4" and doesn't do anything to use that size. And there was one season, correct me if I'm wrong, Taylor, one season where he did pop a few goals for the Flames. And I think that got everybody's hopes up. And he showed up here like a house on fire in that opening series in Philadelphia, and then just poof, man. I mean, he was just gone. Hey, don't be shy about leaving baseball questions here. I don't see any baseball on here. Daniel asks, any chance BJ Finney is the starting center?
Slim chance. Actually, not that slim a chance.
Slim?
I'd say, I'd say 40-60 against. Because I do think they're drafting a center in the 2nd round this year, especially if they get their running back in the 1st round. There's too many guys in the 2nd round who just fit what they need. If they got Landon Dickerson or Quinn Myers or Creed Humphrey or Josh Meyer, I think all of those guys could fight and get a starting spot at least by either week 1 or week 4 or week 5. But BJ Finney, one thing to remember is that last year, the reason it was so rough for him is because he didn't get to work out. Like he was stuck at home. He didn't get to go to Seattle. He was traded to Seattle, where it was the first hotbed in the United States when it came to COVID. And then he was traded to the Bengals, who said they didn't even want him. And it was just like, So I give BJ Finney the credit. He might be better than people think, but I also think if they draft a guy, they're going right ahead of them.
You guys want to hear something awesome? This is the reward that you get for watching fine programming like this. When Ramon Foster from our staff heard that BJ Finney was coming back to the Steelers and that he'd be playing center, Ramon's first remark was, "Oh man." And I go, "What do you mean, Ramon?" He goes, "Well, Ben thinks that BJ has sweaty hands." And I go, "What?" Well, if you think about it, he's snapping the football.
Right.
And if BJ Finney has sweaty hands and he's snapping the ball to the quarterback, the ball's going to be slippery. So this is scouting like that you can't get anywhere else, Carter.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Again,
that's inside football information like BJ Finney's
hilarious.
sweaty hands. Richard Deal asks, which one Pirates player do you think would make a good crossover if they tried out for hockey and vice versa with the Penguins? Well, we know what the answer is on the Penguins end, and I'll let Taylor do that one. But I'll say from the Pirates end, which player would be good at hockey? You'd want somebody who's got some quickness, who's got some athleticism, who's got some hops to them, and I'm going to say Eric Gonzalez. He's such a natural, elegant athlete, and we saw that with the spectacular double play he turned at third base, and then he goes and he hits a 453-foot home run. There's nothing that Eric Gonzalez can't do athletically, and that's what I think of when I think of hockey. I'm thinking of fast, of quick twitch muscles. And Taylor, who would be the best Penguin at playing baseball?
I mean, we've seen Crosby hit him out of the park at PNC Park already, so it has to be him. Although, he and Jack Johnson got kicked off their high school baseball team. Do you remember that story? It was like the pitcher drilled Crosby. Yeah, the pitcher drilled Crosby, and Jack Johnson charged the mound, and Crosby got involved, and they got kicked off their high school baseball team.
I can totally see Jack charging the mound. Kevin James asks, what's up with Mitch Keller? Like, we know he's great, but does he, or what is his issue? Mitch Keller has what pitching coaches refer to as a lack of conviction. What someone outside the baseball realm would refer to as a lack of courage. I'm not comfortable attaching that label to anyone, including the athletes that we cover. It's not something that you throw out loosely. When you say someone, let's say, for example, in football, is a wide receiver who doesn't like to go over the middle, what are we really saying, Carter? You're
saying you don't want to get hit.
You're saying you don't want to get hit. If we're saying, Taylor, that there's a forward that is a perimeter type that doesn't want to go to the net, what are we saying? I mean, it's just, they lack courage. Whereas when you hear Mike Sullivan talk about Jake Gensel, who's half of everyone's size, he just says he's fearless. He's just fearless. You hear Mike Sullivan talk about Jake. Well, Mitch Keller is fearful. As soon as he gets in trouble with his fastball, he won't put it in the zone. Even though he's throwing upper 90s, he starts fishing, he starts nibbling, he starts hoping that they fish. So when you have an at-bat like the one Jorge Soler had last night for Kansas City, the 11-pitch at-bat that results in the 2-run double that put the Royals ahead for good, that's what his outings are like. And how do you coach that? What do you say? What do you say? Hey, kid, toughen up. You think they haven't had that meeting with him? You think his teammates haven't had that meeting with him? I don't know. Here, Paulie says, rumor has it that Carey Price can play in MLB, NFL, and NBA. I want to see Price jam.
The Price jam. That's funny.
Jonathan says, most likely Capitals player to drop the gloves tonight. Is it Chara or Wilson?
I mean, I think I'd have to say Wilson just based off of the history, especially the last time they were here and the way he was running guys. But I don't know. I don't know if we see a fight tonight.
I was going to say, is neither an option? Because it takes two to tango, and who on the Penguin side is going to go fighting anybody? Really? Who's going to irritate anybody enough to get a fight going? It's got to be a case like where TJ Oshie or somebody ticks somebody off, but I don't,
I mean, the Capitals are going to be without, enough guys that they might just be that pissed off because when Ovechkin's out, Carlson might be out. He's a game time decision, so it might be kind of it might be kind of an ugly game, but yeah.
Paul asks if Najee isn't there at 24, do the Steelers trade Dowd? Well, it sure sounded that way from what Kevin Colbert told us the other day at Heinz Field.
Yeah, I look at the talent that this draft has, and I mean, I wrote a talking points about this weeks ago, saying that trading down should absolutely be in the reservoir of moves. It's like, hey, this is a very good possibility this could happen. Trading down would get you hopefully another day 2 pick, and if you get another day 2 pick, that's the sweet spot in this NFL draft to get your linebacker, to get your center, to get a corner, to get an edge rusher. Like that would be a place where if they had 3 picks from there, those are 3 guys that could probably contribute. Now, here's the thing: is how far do you trade back, and who do you trade back with? That's why I wrote up this morning why I think the Saints are probably their best chance now. After the Chiefs trade away that 31st pick, I thought for sure, I'm like, the Chiefs, that's easy. They'll want to get a tackle at 24 because they lost all their tackles this year, so they'll trade up. And now the Ravens out there, like, well, that ain't happening. But the Saints, they need a corner and they need a linebacker. Now, supposedly, according to Jay Glazer, they've called all the way up to the 10th overall pick of the draft with the Cowboys. So the Saints are interested in moving up. But how interested are they? Who do they want? That's going to be interesting. And hey, if they can get a 2nd-round pick out of this, that would be an amazing steal.
And it's all contingent on the running back being available. And I'm saying running back singular. I really believe this is about Harris. David asks, Taylor, are there any college free agents the Penguins signed in recent years who look like they can provide a Brian Rust, Zach Aston Reese, or Connor Sherry production in the next few seasons? And before you answer, I saw a related question up here that I think you can twin with that. John says, yeah, Taylor was I was able to see the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins against the Hershey Bears this past Saturday, and Cam Lee seemed to stand out. What's the word on him?
Yeah, I mean, Cam Lee would have been my pick there.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, because he's an offensive defenseman, and the thing with offensive defensemen when they transition to, the pro game is just kind of learning what they can get away with at this level and what's gonna pay off and what's gonna burn them as far as like offensive production. So that's been the story with him this year. Like you'll see like a bad turnover kind of defensive lapse every now and then, but he has gotten better with that as the season has gone on. He's very elusive. He was quarterbacking the top power play until P.O. got set back down. Now he just quarterbacks the second unit. And I've liked what I've seen from him doing that. I mean, that would be my pick. And as far as other college free agents, I mean, Drew O'Connor, I mean, we've already seen him at the NHL level, but I don't know. I think he probably just wasn't ready. But kind of seeing him, I mean, he's a point per game in Wilkes-Barre. And just seeing, the way he drives to the net and the plays he's making along the boards, and just what he's been able to do with more regular playing time, I think that's really encouraging to see. And I think if he can just play in Wilkes-Barre a little bit longer, get comfortable before he comes back up, I think that'll really help him. And maybe we can see more of that actually translate to the NHL level.
I love this question. Ramel Edwards asks, I'm trying not to get my heart broken. Should I start buying into the Pirates this season, or will there be a cliff after the break? Ramel, if you're looking at the 2021 season and you're judging it by that, because most often when I've gotten this question over the past week or so, it's been about that. Like, should I invest in this season? The answer is, of course, no. They're not there. What they've done has been a very pleasant surprise. It's come with real components, which makes it that much more pleasant, meaning it hasn't been a fluky feel. When they've won games, they've blown people out. They're doing some legitimately good things, especially the bullpen. But you have to understand, this is a longer process. It really is. This team isn't going to be contending or winning a championship. So you have to keep moving, guys. And you're going to see, I'm telling you, when this trade deadline comes, whether it's a Colin Moran or a Richard Rodriguez, and everyone's going to see, here they go. I was just starting to invest. I was just starting to get like Ramel. Ramel got into it, so I got into it, And then you're getting rid of all your guys again. But it's not that simple. You have to game the system in baseball. Matt says, draft day, gentleman and lady, are we bolstering the offensive line first or drafting a running back? And since he addressed the lady, I guess Taylor can take this one, right?
They're absolutely drafting a running back first. I have no idea.
Taylor's on the side.
I have no idea.
But here's my thing. I think every analyst that I've talked to is in agreement. This running back draft class is Najee Harris. Well, there you go. There's my hand. Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, Javonte Williams, everybody else. You're right. So, but the tackle class is like, here's the top, here's the next guys, here's the next guys, here's the next guys, here's the next
wide receivers. It's like wide receivers.
Exactly. There's
just so many.
There's so many of those guys. You can get center in the second round. That's why I keep advocating. Look, if Penei Sewell falls to you at 24, absolutely go get the guy. That's better than a running back situation. But if we're talking Rashawn Slater, Christian Darrisaw, and Sewell are all off the board, which I expect them all to be, I think the pick has to be the running back over the offensive tackle. And there's not a single center that I would take over any of the top 3 running backs right now with the Steelers' needs. So you can do both. I don't understand the people that say that if you do the running back, your offensive line is just doomed to stink for the rest of eternity.
E1 Racing asks, thoughts on the next contract for Brian Rust, 5 and 5. Why do I want to say that he's actually signed for a while?
I have no idea off the top of my head.
That's a tough one. I'd say if you can get yourself a first-line right winger.
He has one more year after this. So,
okay.
He's not. Might be thinking of Gensel. I don't know. I think that's probably a good 5x5 is probably a good estimate.
Well, you have to look at age more than anything when you do these, and as outstanding as Rust is right now and what he's made of himself as a complete hockey player, as a legit first-line winger in the National Hockey League from where he is, he's the most self-made player on the Penguins roster. He's one of the most self-made players in the National Hockey League. But Brian Rust's game is based on, principally, speed. So you always have to mitigate that and consider it whenever you're talking about longer-term contracts here. Sherrod asks, I don't know if this will help, but could Mitch Keller benefit at all from going to Indianapolis for a few weeks to take the pressure off so he can figure out how to command the strike zone? I have a couple responses to that. One is, Indianapolis actually starts playing on Thursday. We're finally going to have minor league baseball this weekend, which is great. And I'm happy for all the people of those organizations and those small towns and the Altoonas and everywhere else that they finally get their teams back for the first time in a very, very, very long time, going back to the end of 2019. 2, I don't know that Keller going to the minors is going to help his confidence. I mean, you're kind of dumping all over him when you do that. He doesn't have an issue commanding the strike zone, Sherrod. He has an issue with wanting to pitch into it. He has command. He's always had command, including when he was in the minors. I don't know that that's going to be solved by sending him down there. I'd rather see him go to a long relief role. Gwen asks, is Ben capable of throwing the long pass anymore? We didn't see it until the end of last season. No point in saving his arm.
What do you mean we didn't see it until the end of last season?
Well, we did. I'm with
the 84-yard bomb into Chase Claypool in week 2. Come on, people. It wasn't.
Okay, you're being literal, but I think Gwen is saying that we didn't see it on a consistent basis. He did stop throwing deep.
He stopped. Okay,
I don't mean to be Gwen's spokesman here, but
of his own volition. It's not that he can't throw the deep ball. They need to get. I
could say that, Carter. I could walk onto the field and say, well, I don't feel like throwing 65-yard passes today, everybody.
Yeah, but my point is this: is that what keeps being said is that Ben can't throw the deep ball. He can't throw the deep ball. I'm like, yes, he can. He does, and we saw in the Browns game, in the playoff game, as soon as he did, points came up. We're going up on the board all over the place. He still has the deep ball. I think what happened is this. I think Ben Roethlisberger for the past several years has wanted to be more like Tom Brady and pick at people underneath and do the Tom Brady-like things. And that has led to him overlooking some obvious things. I mean, one of the big plays of the season when Juju fumbled against the Bengals, he checked down to Juju in double coverage when Chase Claypool was walking 40 yards, 25 yards down. It wasn't even that long of a throw, but he was walking out. It was his hand in the air, like I am wide open. And if he had just thrown a rainbow to him, He could have caught it and scored a touchdown, but he checked it down because I think he was too much in his head that he had to do this check down game and do this short passing game. That's what a running game will help you get out of, because now he knows, hey, I got this running game for the short yard stuff. Let's just work the deep ball. That's what needs to change this year.
We got time for 2 more today. We'll take 1 hockey and 1 football. Daniel asks, I always had a curiosity, why is the Penguins affiliate named the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins if the team plays in Wilkes-Barre and Scranton is like 20 miles away? Oh, are you asking about the Penguins, or are you asking about Wilkes-Barre / Scranton? It sounds like he's asking about why
they're two different. Yeah, well, I mean, because they're cities. Like there's Wilkes-Barre and then there's Scranton 20 miles away. It's not an under Mifflin. The Penguins, the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins have been around since '99, so older than The Office. No, but I mean it's just part of the same metropolitan area in the Wyoming Valley, so that's why their name, it has the name of both cities. And what the is it the Yankees AAA affiliate?
The Yankees AAA affiliate, but it's the other way around. It's the Scranton Wilkes-Barre.
Because their stadium is in Scranton, so. They're in Scranton, so they're Scranton Wilkes-Barre, but again, it's the same metropolitan area. So, they share like they're the newspapers there are for both areas. So, it's just like you said, it's 20 miles away from each other.
Super quick baseball one to sneak in. Sherrod says Eric Gonzalez takes over shortstop full time once Hayes comes back. I hope so. Kevin Newman's had his chance. He's hitting 180. This team needs to compete. At least for now, they need to compete. They need to put their best players on the field here. And Paul closes us off today, of course, with the draft because it's draft day. And he says, is there a player the Steelers are willing to trade up for if he starts sliding? And before I throw it to Carter, I will remind that Kevin Colbert, his exact 2 words as it relates to trading up were very doubtful. So I don't get the sense that they are super enamored of anybody up there where they would go, wow, we're going to do a Devin Bush or a Troy Polamalu and slide up.
Right. No, I agree entirely. That's the take here, is that there are, sure, there are great talents that are sitting up there, but nobody they're like, that's a desperate need that we have. Like Devin Bush, they needed the inside linebacker. If they didn't have Devin Bush on the roster, maybe that would be the call with Michael Parsons this year, but that ain't the case. The only player who I think this would apply to.
Don't say Fields. Don't say Fields.
It's Justin Fields.
Oh, he said Fields.
I said the thing. Fields. I did the thing because that's my thing here, is that Justin Fields, to me, he is the second best quarterback in this class. It is Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, and then the rest of the guys are down here.
Not everyone concurs with that.
No, I know a lot of people. There's people that say that Justin Fields should be drafted 32nd overall, and I just like that's ridiculous. And to me, if in this hypothetical world where I don't think will happen, if Fields were to slide to 19-20 range, that would be when
they'd get fidgety.
I would consider picking up a phone if I'm Kevin Colbert. Normally I wouldn't, because I don't think they should trade up in this draft. They need to trade back and get more picks. But Justin Fields is the exception to the rule.
Well, thanks to Paul for the question. Thanks to everybody for all the questions. Thanks to everybody for watching Afternoon Ask Anything. We'll have another one of these tomorrow, and I strongly suspect we're going to go heavy on football with this one. On behalf of Taylor Haase and Chris Carter, I'm Dejan Kovacevic, and thanks for checking in with Afternoon Ask Anything.